Ah, what a wonderful day inside. You know, it actually is getting dangerous out there. Like, I walked outside and someone had thrown some kind of like white disco ball up. I think it's dangerous. Like, you can't stare at it too long without like feeling bad.
At 7 p.m., like exactly at 7 p.m. in my neighborhood every night for the last several weeks, someone has a tuba in my building and has just been like fucking blasting the thing. Not even trying to play any music, just until for like 5 minutes or so, like a church bell, like some horrible fucking church bell.
Does he know that at some point between August and mid 2021, when people can stand near each other again, someone is going to beat him to death with a baseball bat? Is he just aware of his future, like, encroaching on him like that?
Well, here's the thing, is that it started with him, right? And now, at 7, inspired by this dumbass, I guess, just everyone, I don't know if it's this building or the neighborhood in general, but people just start fucking hooting out the window. And I don't... It's actually fascinating because most of the residents of my building are like middle-aged or older people or whatever, and it's just really, really interesting watching them having regressed to, primates.
It almost makes me wish that it was like I lived in an area that was purely reactionary boomers, like people just who refused to acknowledge this was happening. Because then at 7 p.m. I wouldn't get this half-assed world-building element.
I'm trying to understand, like, I kind of understand the reason behind it, but I feel like I'm missing a step here.
The reasoning behind it, I mean, it's easier than rioting. You can do it from more than 6 feet apart.
Most of them are, like, too old or frail or unmotivated to riot, which I guess that's good for me at the very least, because I am too old, too frail, and too unmotivated to riot, certainly.
Oh, that's how you feel? I don't know, I'm 2 years older, and I feel like I'm in, like, the prime rioting bracket. Like, I've got a riot mentality, I have various objects just lying about. I don't know why. Is this stuff even legal? Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to have some of this stuff in here.
I honestly don't feel like samurai swords are the most, riot-friendly of weapons. They're just too precise.
I mean, it's off mood, sure, but I don't know, maybe it's like a, prog rock. Pulling in elements from other fucking genres.
Oh, sure, I get that. I'm just thinking about, like, practicality here.
That's a point, and I guess rioting isn't more inherently kind of a punk rock thing.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is just, like, a big fucking piece of plywood, right? It's easier to apply force with that to multiple, people or objects than it is with a katana, right? A katana, you sort of need to know how to use it, and, your average rioter is not trained in combat, right? So I guess, like,
But wouldn't it be great to watch? Like, wouldn't you really enjoy that?
That's what the Boxer Rebellion was, right?
Oh, man. I'm sure
Just
there'll
a bunch
be
of people rioting who are trained to riot.
Oh, that fucking great. I'm sure there'll be some good media all about this, but that's not what I'm really interested in. I'm interested in what the really, like, shitball sitcom episodes, like, just all the wannabe bottle episodes that come out of recreating this moment.
Yeah, I'm not excited for... I'm wondering what kind of shitty music we've already gotten some shitty music. Just, like celebrities singing Imagine or whatever. It's boring. I'm wondering, like, if there's any
Imagine was a lot of things.
Music.
I don't know if it was boring. Like, I haven't had a resentful laugh that pure since a Bush family member died.
When was... Oh, yeah, right. HW. Yeah, I forgot about that. I don't know. After like the sixth one did it, the novelty wore off.
I don't know, man. I think there's a big one down the pipeline in about 10 years, and I don't know what shape I'll in. I have to try to keep in shape so I can still do a backflip when Bush Jr. dies.
By
the way, to my awareness, there's about 300 of you, and statistically, some of you are conservatives. I kind of want to know what the listening experience is like, because I know it's only 4% of content on this podcast that's like this. Do you just, like, hum and just scroll forward until you hear the word isekai, or... It's a fun thought for me. It's a fun thought. But speaking of punk rock applications of things, both of the shows we're doing today have a very chaotic wavelength.
Oddly, it was interesting and fortuitous, right? That we were watching one show and then decided to check out the other because they have a decent amount in common. Oddly, no, like in a way that's slightly hard to describe, but we'll get there. The first show is a show that everyone knows.
We're going back.
Yeah. We're gonna do a retrospective of Kill la Kill here. It's actually my first time going through the series in its entirety, so I'm experiencing a whole lot of these fun things for the first time.
I was exposed to the show as it was released live, episode by episode, and that was a fucking trip.
There's been a whole lot of ink spilled about Kill la Kill, so I don't want to get too deep into, the common discussions about it, like whether it's satire, whether it's good satire, etc., etc. Mostly, I just wanted to offer up one or two things that I've noticed about it that they're just meant something to me in particular, which we'll get to once we begin the actual discussion about it.
So I guess I'm going to do the broad context sweep, I guess. So this was what sort of made Studio Trigger, which was a, birth child, cousin, clone of Studio Gainax, who you might have heard of. And if you listen to a show called Weeaboo Hell and you haven't heard of Gainax, then I don't know, I feel like the community has failed you on some level. Like, you should really just yell at the next Weeaboo you meet or see, because they're not trying to build. They're not trying to build something together. So
they could have done more to foster the young of their community.
Yeah. And in terms of genre labels, it is an action show. It is perhaps the action show. It does not have a real second thought on its brain other than, actually, that's not true. It's very amusing. So I guess there are a lot of gags in it too, but it's not, but not to the frontier where you call it an action comedy. I don't know how many jokes you can put into an action thing without crossing the genre barrier, but it really rides that line.
I don't know. I think it might be an action comedy. Yeah, so one thing that the show is not is satire. I think a lot of people, fans, I would say misguided ones especially, like to label it as such in an attempt to sort of rationalize the really, really heavy-handed fan service aspects of it.
I think that there's a human instinct where when you like something, or when something is just broadly good, or its score is good, you want to think of every element as being, like, super intelligent or thought out or well placed, and I don't know, there are good dumb things. Like, this is a good dumb show.
Yeah.
It is perhaps the good dumb show.
One thing that I kind of enjoy about it, sort of later on, is that when it shows you its hand, they're all fucking Uno cards.
They're all fucking Uno cards or counterfeit currency when a certain king comes in.
I'll get to that because it doesn't... You're right. For all the ink spilled about this show, I do not actually believe that it has a whole ton under the hood.
Excuse me, Sam. It's a deconstruction of fashion, culture, and sexuality in media that anime has been waiting for. Was anything ever the same after Kill la Kill showed us that everything we thought was wrong? Well, I guess motion screens, whatever saying. They really do a lot with a little in terms of animation budget during the earlier episodes of this show.
It's actually kind of interesting. This show is sort of remembered for its sort of kinetic feel to it, but whenever they have to do limited animation or the Sakugo, whatever you want to call it, they have a really fun time with it and turn it into part of the humor.
Like, when it comes to the animation gags in the show, we talked about Eizouken recently, so I'll convert to that one. It's like you had someone with the skill and love of the form of that guy, and just none of the interest in teaching anyone anything. And half the money.
Yeah, about.
When the resident psycho for hire comes in, they just slowly tween their thin smile across their face, and it's fucking hilarious.
I'm a really big fan of how So this is actually the first thing that I wanted to get to about Kill la Kill, because it is I think my favorite element of the whole thing is I don't have a word for it. It's not like an established trope or anything, but it's something that I've really only seen in this show, which is this the occurrence of a bunch of identical minions showing up out of nowhere.
Oh, dude, the fucking copy paste minion legion.
The copy paste minion legion.
Like
it's
everyone
the best
has
running
a
gag
personalized putty patrol, and it's fucking great. I guess I should talk about the settings. The setting in this is... I could almost call it a high school, and it's the only thing I can see why people almost approach the label as satire. Once again, it's not. But she basically lives in a totalitarian dictatorship framed around a high school.
It's interesting because it's very silly and very, like anime and such. So you sort of give it a pass, right? But like early on in the show, it's sort of implied that they are, the one city that remains in some sort of, like post-apocalyptic or post-nuclear wasteland or something like that. And then like halfway through the show,
no, it's just there are other places. They're weird, but not as weird.
There are other places. The world seems to be normal. Maybe it's a little bit in the future or something. I don't know. Yeah, these people are just real goddamn weird.
Which is...
They have this weird school thing or something. I don't know. They built this weird tiered society around it. It's not a popular vacation destination.
Anyway, the club presidents or high achievers all get clothes that give them fucking superpowers. There's a whole longer-winded explanation you can go through. But what it amounts to is a frame for...
on it, in fact.
They do. But there is... It's a frame for gags and violence.
Yeah, I this does feel... I know that they weren't, right? Because animation requires a pipeline or something like that. But this did actually feel quite a bit like a show in which they were sort of writing by the seat of their pants. Maybe they were, and they just decided to animate the results of it.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I was drawn to the punk thing, other than the fact that we had that whole poster frog joke last episode, is just... This show is basically like motion... 3 chords and the truth? This is like motion tweens and the truth. Or just motion tweens, fan service, and violence. They have three things on their mind.
I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm not more turned off by the fan service than I am, like, given my predilections. Like, if you've been listening, you know how I am with that sort of thing, right? I think it's the fact that the art style and animation are as goofy as they are. I've been trying to put my finger on why it doesn't particularly bother me, and I think that probably has something to do with it.
If I could put my theory towards it, because I live in your fucking head... I think there are a few things. First off, There's just a lot happening visually at any given point, so you're almost pulled along to the next thing before the okay, they're at it again kind of thing can set in too deeply.
That's true.
The second thing is that in the 1 or 2 themes that it pretends to chase, it at least is a surface level topic, so it feels maybe less random than it might.
Yeah, that could very well be. They it's not as gratuitous as it is in some series, and definitely in the series that we're going to talk about later today.
I also think that there is definitely something to be said that a lot of the times over sex stuff, like, it's trying to make up for shortfalls in something, whereas here I think it's more of just a unnecessary addendum to something that was working, which is better than just trying to support a faulty structure with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's not trying to paint over like a fucking fist-sized dent in the wall with just a poster of someone's ass, in essence.
This is true. I think if I have like a little mental image that I can conjure up for this show, it's just someone taking a dial labeled anime bullshit and just turning it all the way to the right until the machine breaks. Yeah,
they just turn it, the dial fucking snaps off in their hand, more anime bullshit leaks out of the machine.
There is one thing about this that I kind of couldn't overlook, though, is that in the first these jokes kind of disappear pretty quickly, but in the first couple of episodes, there's just a whole lot of jokes about sexual assault that there was really no plastering over them or really any sort of you really can't make any sort of argument about how it's like kind of part of the goofiness or whatever. They stick out like a
Here we see the man trying to avoid the term sore thumb. Can he find them?
Yeah, no shit, fuck me. Yeah, you got me. I was trying to find a more colorful. They stick out really badly. They kind of are uncomfortable to sit through, and then you're sort of having to try and move on to whatever like the next joke is to forget that scene happened and that it was as in poor taste as it was. What I will say, I mean, I guess to the show's credit, is that, yeah, they stopped making those jokes after the first couple of episodes. I don't know if it was because all the writers decided...
And fucking sight gags really fill that void. And, by the way, we watched the dub for this because, A, it's an older show, and B, when there's a decent dub, we tend to gravitate towards that Sumi. And I was really impressed by...
That's very good.
What the cast did on this one. Yeah, I was like, everyone was... A, whoever was in just selection of voices, that turned out very well. B, the way that people just did all the fucking joke tags in this was pretty consistently wonderful.
There's sort of this meme that Japanese voice actors are better than, English language voice actors, which is kind of patently not true if you know anything about that particular part of the industry. The one thing, though, is that often the shortcomings of dubs can be explained by the fact that there's a whole lot of, like, Japanese is quite idiomatic. There's a whole lot of wordplay that takes place in Japanese. So
it's true. That's why mine is terrible.
Is you have to adapt, Japanese puns or Japanese idioms or Japanese wordplay, that sort of thing, into English, and it'll never not feel awkward because Japanese is just not structured the way that English is. So a lot of the time you get dubs that feel that sort of awkward or stunted, or you have people reacting to things in a way that people don't react to things.
Yeah, dubs can sometimes feel like they were translated by an alien for a different species of alien.
I think one of the strengths that this dub had or has, I think, is the fact that I do feel as though the writing team for Kill la Kill
loves cocaine.
No, they I think they made the jokes just a little bit more universal. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving the dub team as much credit as I should, because it really is fantastic.
True. Localization is a cold gray hell from which you emerge with a long beard and a resentment to cuts to the WH. Wait, was I talking about the other thing again? Whatever. And sorry, it's on my mind.
I don't see how it could not be.
That's fair. But yeah, when it comes to how this is localized, that's interesting. I almost want to revisit the fucking pirated sub I originally experienced this shit with and see, like, how much stuff was, like, slotted in with something that was maybe more understandable on a local level.
I know that they do a whole lot to sort of have characters speak the way that people do quite a bit of the time, especially with Ryuka. Ryuka's voice actress and, whoever wrote the lines for her in English, it did a very, very good job of making her seem more like a teenager, less like a not an anime teenager, but like a dubbed anime teenager.
Oh, just the weird 30-year-old drawl everyone has.
Like that, and also, I don't know. It's talking about dubs can be kind of weird because there's a whole lot of, it's like a moving target sometimes, because every one of them seems to have its own sort of thing that is awkward about it. I remember ages ago watching
When the World Was Young.
I think it was like Aoyori Yoshi or something like that, and just for whatever fucking reason, that just still fucking escapes me. The dub decided, or the English line producers decided everyone was still going to refer to everyone else using Japanese honorifics. And
Oh
it was
boy, that sounds like it might loop
horribly awkward.
all the way back to an entertaining experience. That species
No, you just
of
felt
fuck up might
secondhand
really
embarrassment.
might
And, like, these
really
are not-
add something for me.
These were not bad voice actors too, because you had oh god, who was on that dub? For some reason I remember. Yeah, you had like Wendy Lee. She was part of that dub cast. Michelle Ruff. These are good voice actors, right? And then you just have them try to adapt, point for point, the little bits and pieces of, Japanese as it is spoken, right? And it just doesn't sound good in English because, Japanese syntax and Japanese honorifics and such like that are not meant to be spoken in English. The language was not constructed to be spoken in English. I know that that's obvious, but, I guess it has to be said.
Speaking of what's universal about some of the humor going on here is I think that's at least... I mean, obviously, anyone who animates for a living is a huge animation nerd, and during some of the fucking physical gags, you can really see some of the Looney Tunes coming through. I remember when Floaty Pink Psycho for Hire winds up in this hallway full of explosives.
Nui Harime.
Nui Harime. She all but says, what was the fucking Daffy Duck thing? Actually, there's more of a Bugs Bunny moment, like, got me this time, Doc.
Well, no, it can't be because no one ever gets him. Well, except in Falling Hair. They got him there. And Rabbit Rampage, but that one is, like, not well regarded and is practically non-canon at this point. I think you're thinking of the Hunting trilogy, just the "you're despicable."
Yeah, that kind of beat.
Although I don't know, at times because of all the clown shit going on and the fact that Ryoko is very much not silly in the way that
she is an excellent straight man for all of this. She really comes off as like if Daffy Duck got a push or something.
No, yeah, for real. I was about to call her like Daffy Duck in a bikini, and like
she's here in a tennis match to the death, shouting, "You're not playing by the rules."
The tennis bit. I think that was like the second or third episode or something like that.
That was also, exactly the second episode.
The second episode also features a fantastic example of just instant minions, and they all make the exact same noise.
If I were to power rank the different club minions, I have to give the number one slot to the fucking marching band. I feel like
that was incredible.
They look like what like platelets grow up to be in like a fascist country.
It's really strange. You've got like fantastic character design, very simple but very effective character design for these characters that have no name, have no personality, basically have no individuality, agency or voice at all. But they're just so fucking entertaining, just doing the things that they are doing. I think it's the way that they draw their eyes for the marching band. I think that was it.
I don't know why
they just have these beady blank eyes.
I don't know why anything about Studio Trigger surprised anyone after this. Like, you can basically plot the quality of the show against the complexity. Inverse relationship.
Yeah, it's like the
like every strength and weakness is pretty laid out here.
Yeah, the more, and like with with Darling and the Franks, like the more shit they started pulling out of their hat, as the show went on. Well, actually, no, it was not that the show deteriorated slowly in quality. It was that there was, just sort of a Wile E. Coyote-esque cliff that it fell off of.
Yeah,
so maybe that's
dived off that cliff. It was artful. That was like an Olympic jump. I was fucking impressed with how Darling and the Franks fell off.
I'm not really sure, like, what decision was made, right, with that show that wasn't made with Kill la Kill, right? I'm not.
That is a good question. I mean, I guess one thing
is
is
it
that
that
it's a
Kill la Kill
collaboration, so there were some people without the signature, like, trigger ADD in the writer's room, and that just threw the balance off.
could very well be. The other thing, right? The thing is that Kill la Kill, at about the exact same point in the series, by the way, as with Darling in the Franxx, features a pretty huge ass twist too.
Yeah, pretty huge ass turn, I think. And it works out way better. I think, for one thing, there are familiar elements to it, but it's way less of a retread of that familiar fucking Ava ground.
Yeah, I think it just felt very stale in Darling in the Franxx. Like the wool had been pulled over our eyes, and
Actually, wait, I'm dancing around something very simple here. Kill la Kill has a really strong sense of identity and direction that you can see from orbit. And Darling at the Franxx just became kind of rudderless. And that, I guess that's a big thing creatively. Like, when you know what you're doing is and why you're doing it, that can be a guiding light. And for some people, that means making it about an evil clothing corporation trying to take over the world. Does it make sense?
Is that
not fucking really. Do they understand what they're doing? Totally. And sometimes that's enough.
it's easier to have a show be like Gurren Lagann than it is to have a show be like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Maybe that's it.
That is a. I think that's a good point. Like, I think while both require immense talent to make an Eva, you would also need a little bit of a big brainedness.
Could be. I actually almost feel, now that I've said it, that I'm selling Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill just a little bit short. I know that a whole bunch of the same team worked on all three series, right? Like Kill la Kill, not Evangelion. I mean, maybe Evangelion. Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann, and Darling in the Franxx, right? I think it was like a decent amount of the same people worked on all three series.
Yeah, and it's that thing I was talking about earlier. You know what I love about things like this? It lets me tell people to shut the fuck up when they try to defend something as, like, just a fun action show or just a stupid action movie. No, this is what a good, stupid action movie is like.
That's true.
Like, most things that people try to defend of that tag, like, if you break them down, like, block by block, I know I've made this point before, but they're basically crap dramas of fight scenes attached. This is what, like, when you say something's a madcap, loose logic, rockabilly action show, is what that should feel like.
I'm gonna make a food metaphor here because I like food, cooking, etc., shit like that. There's a thing that I learned about junk food, right? Is that junk food is actually designed, I guess you could say designed, right? Formulated to be a little bit bland, right? So that you will eat more of it because the palate actually gets exhausted of big fucking flavors fairly quickly, right? I don't know, like, it's this sort of biological thing, I guess. I don't really know, like, the word for it, really, right? But I think it might actually be your body's sort of mechanism that stops you from eating once you've had enough, right? But when you make a snack, kind of bland, kind of salty, maybe it has a little bit of flavor somewhere, right? Like, it's way the fuck easier to eat a whole fuck ton of Doritos or, like pretzels or something like that, right? Than it is to eat a whole fuck ton of, I don't know, like chicken tikka masala. Like, yeah, you can eat a bunch of it. I have, but like, you do get full way faster. And I think that is the difference between, the, kind of trash, long-running shonen kind of, I'm just subtweeting Bleach here. I'm just going to say Bleach.
It's fucking coming back.
Right? Oh, God. It's just, everything old is new again. No, everything new is old. Whatever. However you say that phrase. And then you've got, your shows like this, right? Your chicken tikka masala, which is
just dumped in tomato and spice.
I don't think this could have sustained more than 26 episodes. and I'm glad that it did not have to. But I think that's
Yeah, Kill la Kill
that's
is
sort of my counter
the right
argument
length.
to I just want to turn my brain off and enjoy the just like it'll like go on for a million episodes and be exactly the same. I mean, like I guess I shouldn't be talking because like the quarantine has me fucking playing World of Warcraft again, and no one is more guilty of doing that shit than fucking World of Warcraft.
Well, whatever.
But
This isn't 1337 Hell. It's Weeaboo Hell, and I think there's a point you have there about like the whole turn your brain off line. Like, I think during a good dumb thing, you don't even turn your brain off. Your brain is saying, "Holy crap! What am I watching? This is amazing."
that's true. I did feel exceptionally engaged by this show the whole time I was watching it. I never once felt as though I was doing that sort of thing where you're just melting into your seat, kind of dissociating just a little bit, that kind of jazz.
Yeah. You start hearing like "Don't stay, run away" in the fucking Mastodon cadence, and you drift into the astral plane. We do a lot of metal here at Weeaboo Hell.
So speaking of flying beyond the sun before it was time, I've got an awkward transition for you. The second show that we watched today is one that's currently airing, one that's actually getting just a decent amount of traction in the community that I can tell.
There is a lot of chatter about this one. I can see how it might have sort of kicked the door in for some people attention-wise. It does a few broad maneuvers.
I would compare it somewhat to It Invaded, just a little bit. Not like conceptually or anything, but it's just sort of like on that wavelength, on that level of like sort of has some stuff on its mind, but also you sort of have to take a whole bunch of shit for granted, and you also very much have to ignore some other shit. Actually, It Invaded did not have that problem as much, so maybe this metaphor doesn't actually work, but for some reason it did remind me of It Invaded as being exactly as intelligent as It Invaded was, right? Okay,
I think It Invaded was maybe smarter on the character front than this. Like, maybe same complexity level in terms of like character depth, but maybe a lot more. I don't know, a wider and more original spread of archetypes in It Invaded.
Maybe we're just both talking about the fact that they are both sign-in shows. I think that probably has something to do with it.
Yeah, there's like a delivery. There's like a delivery method. Yeah, there's like a house style.
There's a miasma in the air whenever you watch sign. Anyway, it's Gleipnir is the show that we watched. I think there's 3 episodes out right now. We're current, and I had some thoughts about it. I would say mixed bag. Definitely mixed bag.
Appreciate the very creative elements of this show, and there are. I guess let me do some fucking broad strokes. This one, okay. I'm gonna. We're 3 episodes of this thing exist as of press time. I'm going to spoil the fuck out of them. If you're convinced you're going to watch this, then I don't know. Pause the episode, return to it later to hear my fucking hot takes. This is a show about a guy who turns into a mascot that a girl can ride inside him like a mech, and it's all an obtuse metaphor for fucking sexual awakening and boning and almost pegging. Like I would
almost just a little bit.
Yeah, if I were to be full snark mode, I would say it's a show about pegging.
I think. Well, here's the thing. This is a show about, and like I'm talking about. I'm peering through all the metaphor here, right? I'm digging through all the metaphor. Beyond this kid can turn into a giant mascot suit with a gun, beyond his new yandere waifu who can crawl inside of him and make him hit better because he's kind of a puss. Beyond any of that, this is a show about a guy who got caught with an erection.
It is a to date a dramatization of standing up in gym class with a boner, and there's a beast inside of you that you can't control. Only it weirdly loses sight of it. It starts out with the beast being more sexually aggressive, and then he's just sort of clumsy in that form, and he needs the girl inside him. I don't know. It's
a very confused metaphor. That's I'm not gonna pretend that this show is Oh god, we're gonna go with like its reach exceeds its graphs again.
It happens. It's a recurring fucking thing. I don't know.
It happens a lot. Yeah, it's the same issue that It Invaded had. I think It Invaded kind of was able to navigate its various strange and hard to work with ideas a little bit more deftly. Certainly, this has to distract you with fan service quite a bit, and I don't care that it's about a sexual awakening or like teenage sexual or whatever the fuck. I don't care about any of that, because if fan service is distracting, then it's not good fan service.
I guess that's just gonna be our company line on the concept. Then, like, if you're trying to use it to obscure where things are not going on, then you have a fucking problem.
Yeah. I hate to bring it back to Prison School again, but let me bring it back to Prison School, right? Prison School is a show about, honestly, like, very similar things, right? Prison School is a show about that really fucking uncomfortable boner that you have as you stand up in gym class, right? And all of this sort of male gaze kind of elements in it, It's hard to describe, but they do a very good job in reinforcing that this is the point of view of the various protagonists.
Yeah, if they're not
as
quite
they are sort
like
of overcome by lust or whatever. And I think what helped that comic, whatever, is that the characters have fucking personalities.
Yes,
and
it is very helpful to have a fucking personality. The main guy in this, why do we keep getting default anime guy 3?
I'm so frustrated with it, right? Because they recognize that he was anime guy 3, right? You've got this kid, right? And like the first sort of internal monologue he has, right, is that he wants to be, he likes that he's completely normal and completely like everything else, and then mentions at one point that he's empty, right? As though he's an empty shell, right? And there's almost this metaphor that, like, she inserts herself into him, right? As though, a viewer is supposed to insert themselves into, this bland fucking toast-ass protagonist, right? But then they never actually do anything interesting with it, right? That's almost interesting right there, but I still have to fucking follow this guy around and pretend like I give a shit.
If you make toast-flavored toast and say, oh, here's toast-flavored toast, and you don't really do anything, or there's not really a reason, then why? Why? Like, you could have all kinds of personalities and maintain that route. Like, here's someone going through this weird ass sexual awakening thing, I would care more. I would care way more. I don't need there to be nothing there for me to try to project myself onto a character. Like, the relatable part of him isn't the places where you put nothing. It's the only thing you actually did do, and they need to learn the difference between those things.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of annoyed. I would have almost really preferred that they hadn't, done that whole thing. It's like, I'm completely normal. I want to be just like everything else or everyone else. I'm empty inside, that sort of thing. I wish they hadn't have done that, right? Because like it just feels like they were kind of covering their ass, and not particularly well.
It's like trying to cover your ass with a worn hula skirt. Like the action is coming through. Mm-hmm. That is the weirdest metaphor I have used yet. I don't know, maybe
you were actually able to come up with one, so you're already, doing way better than I am this evening.
I guess when it comes to the whole, I don't know, sexual dialectic in this fucking show, I should mention that there's this whole thing going on where his girlfriend is one of the, not girlfriend, whatever, mech partner. I mean, they don't say mech, but it's like a nuanced mech thing again. But his part,
which I always enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way they did it was one of the more interesting
things. And I do enjoy this aspect of the show. It's very interesting. I mean,
I just should note that his mech partner has like that yandere style that they've been throwing around since Mirai Nikki. Well, maybe not quite yandere because she's not murderous except for herself, like she's suicidal. There's some terminology between it, but it's like she's like, I don't know, romanticized love letter to fucking pop culture version of BPD.
The character's name is Claire Aoki, and I'm kind of predicting that the anime community is going to end up really liking her a whole lot, more so than I believe she deserves, because I would say that there are a couple different flavors of yandere, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all of my time watching anime.
As an expert in the science.
The first flavor is the kind who is just really, really wants to fuck the protagonist, like maybe a little bit too much, and they're kind of violent, right? And I don't find that too particularly interesting. That is the flavor that Claire Aoki is, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the interesting flavor, the one that actually has like some fucking menace to it, right? Like kind of has an ass on it. This is the kind. This is the kind that like wants to slice off your gonads so that she could have them. That's the far more interesting kind.
Salient point, Sam.
It feels way the fuck less like a fetish than it does like an actual sort of menacing character archetype.
Salient point, Sam. Though, if I could make a small correction, the way that they normally execute these, I believe that both usually have an ass on them. But Tish.
But I didn't.
Yeah, if I could just get a whole drum roll on that fucker. And yeah, she does not have that little venomy twist that would endear me more to the use of it, I guess.
No, I don't feel like she's actually that dangerous. Like, there's never any sort of sense that, protagonist kid, I don't care what his name is, he sort of has one. I never get the sense that he's in any danger from her. Like, yeah, she puts him in danger, but that's not really what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's fucking fair. I don't know. In the same way that I think you get a sort of visceral irritation with things that look like they were just drawn off one hand the whole time. Sometimes there's some, and maybe it's more the archetype than the specific execution, like exclusively, but like character archetypes that are written with one hand, my eyes just sort of roll back to the back of my skull, and I think, when will the next thing happen?
Yeah, she definitely seems a little bit like that. Like, people were studying, the best girl charts, right? The best girl polls, like figuring out trends that have been working, trends that are on the that are on the outs,
and they're trying to find like which sequence of C, G's, A's, and
come
C's
back through.
Builds this new model of waifu.
If I felt like being completely cynical right now, I'd say that they were fucking looking at Toga's position on the popularity charts, right? And thinking like, oh man, we could get in on this action. And thus this season's yandere waifu was thus born.
And two production executives just tilt wine glasses at each other in the air. We've done it again, my man. We've done it again.
What's weird is that I thought I was going to be this annoyed by Himiko Toga from Hero Aka or My Hero Academia, if anyone hasn't watched or read, whatever. But weirdly enough, the character worked for me there, like way the fuck more than. And it's honestly, she seems to actually be kind of the same kind of groove as Claire Aoki, and that like I do not ever buy for a goddamn second that Deku is in any mortal danger. From Himiko Toga, sort of the way that I do not buy that protagonist kid is in any mortal danger from Claire Aoki here, right? But I don't know, and I thought I was gonna be really fucking annoyed by Himiko Toga, but I wasn't. I'm still trying to put my finger on why.
Does Toga even have the screen time to really get annoying? Like, one thing is that I think as the duotagonist of this show, Yandere Girl here is really exposed in terms of fucking character
Could be,
depth.
yeah. They're conservative with how they use Toga in that show, for certain. And I think like when she first shows up, right, impersonating, like another character in Hero Aka, like that was an interesting enough way to introduce her character. Wait, hold on. Was that when she first shows up? Did she first show up in the story, or did she first show up impersonating Cammy? Because I cannot remember which arc came first.
Oh man, I would have to do a whole Google retread to answer that one. By the way, I think since I've mostly been negative here, I really do want to mention that there are some wackadoo fucking ideas here that I appreciate. Like, I like how completely...
say what you will about this show, the elevator pitch. Fucking...
Yeah, it has the elevator pitch, like, yeah, a girl rides inside a guy, and it's like penetration, and it's weird, and also he's her mech now. And you pause twice and say, what? Could you say that again without the mescaline?
I am wondering why these ideas just always only show up in anime. Like, maybe it's just because they've been so market tested that execs are far more they're far more down to play ball with them.
It's almost like a creative version of
maybe-
the fucking Overton window. Like, maybe just a willingness to try wackadoo shit begets more wackadoo shit in the long term.
Could be. I think also the fact that you've got the manga industry sort of working in tandem with the anime industry, right? Popularity polls sort of are how they determine, what stays and what goes, right?
Yeah.
And so the manga magazines will sign, whatever fucking weird ass series with the knowledge that they can cancel it 3 issues later, right? And so they have the freedom and the flexibility to sign wackadoo shit, and when wackadoo shit plays with the audiences, right, with the readers, the anime industry notices, and they're like, okay, if people are reading it, fuck it. And I think the fact that the animation industry in the U.S. just absolutely does not work like that might be why anime gets as weird as it does.
That's an interesting theory. Like, there's already a proving ground for the wildest concepts out there, since so much of this stuff is direct adaptations or theft of ideas often. Lots of theft.
Like, I don't want to make that easy and kind of racist. It was the bomb joke.
Yeah, how do people keep getting away with that one? Like, in a era where it's theoretically, like, for all the complaining about everyone's getting canceled these days, you can just drop a nuke joke and walk away like nothing happened, and you will still be employed by a Fortune 500 company tomorrow.
We are on our like fucking 50th victory lap for World War II, I guess, or like specifically the Pacific War, because we didn't actually win the European War. The Red Army did, but I
wants
think
participation trophy.
Right? So I think, I don't know, maybe it is just still acceptable because of that or something. I don't know. I
don't understand.
In all
people...
fairness, not a whole lot of people in my circle have made like made the whole, oh man, that bomb turned them weird joke recently at the very least. So I don't know. But
dude, I heard of that fucking work, and like, not like, in one of those isolated lunches, like, bro time. Hey, so who in the office do you want to sexually assault? No, it was like at the desk, just a group of people.
To bring it back just a little bit, I think, yeah, it does have a lot to do with the sort of farm team format of the manga industry. And how it sort of works as such to the anime industry. So there's something to be said for that. It could also be, I don't know enough about the Japanese literary tradition. Like, I've read, enough Haruki Murakami.
Whoa. You completely misrepresented yourself when I agreed to start this podcast. You fuck.
I mean, my familiarity with the Japanese literary tradition starts with the Osamu Tezuka. That's I go back to like 1953 here. Before that, like I guess I could get around to reading the Tale of Genji
when
or
you say
something like that.
1953, you mean like BC, right? Because then you didn't fucking lie to me.
I'm sorry that you had to find out this way. But I know. What is interesting is that Haruki Murakami's shit is just as fucking weird as a whole bunch of anime, too. So, I don't know. Maybe there is something to the idea that it has to do with the literary tradition. Or maybe Haruki Murakami's just real goddamn weird.
I think the guy might just be a genuine fucking original. He is something else.
It's like having a dream about watching hentai. I think that is what Haruki Murakami is like.
Would a Haruki Murakami episode break the concept of the show? Whatever, maybe next April Fool's Day.
Ooh, I would love to fucking do it. Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe. I would love to do a Haruki Murakami episode. He's not oddly enough, like, as very Japanese as his stuff is, it's oddly not very weeby, if that makes sense. I don't know, like, I don't think like he's ever crossed over to that side, or they've ever crossed over to his side.
That's interesting. It's interesting, the little walls that form up. Anyway, another problem with this show is that sometimes it has trouble holding your attention. Like whenever it sort of drifts into some stock things. Like I remember they did the fucking etchy slap gag with a character that I think she becomes important later, but hitherto has done nothing of note.
I don't know.
That.
The kids that the main protagonist hangs out with in his high school, homeroom, whatever the fuck, for the first, 15 minutes of the show. Statistically speaking, never that important.
Christ.
Especially in shows such as these that are not just slice of life shows about, I don't know, a bunch of fucking assholes in school. They are about, some other weird shit is going on beyond, your mundane high school or whatever, right? So I doubt
in a world core.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I doubt we are going to be hearing much, if anything, from those characters ever again. So really, yes, this girl. There's the one girl who has sort of just been following him around, kind of piningly, and she might be important. Everyone else, like, I don't even remember their names. I don't know if they have names. They don't really need to. Seem to be there just, to be the homeroom kids, and then one of them showed us her panties.
Oh, something I've been trying
to
to be better at giving things credit in the parts I like when I don't dig the average. But something I love.
Yeah, Jesus, I'm actually kind of ripping into this one tonight. It was not my intention to. I kind of liked it.
The one thing I really want to point out. The fact that he specifically turns into a fucking mascot, fucking hilarious. Intentionally hilarious.
Oh, it's great.
And that's kind of great.
Intentionally hilarious and really good. And, like, kind of creepy and sort of, like
stands out in a crowd.
It gives the whole show a very kind of specific, kind of weird aesthetic to it. That, I don't know, maybe you could compare it to one or two other things, but I do like the sort of, it's cool and it's kind of creepy sort of look that it's got. I'm trying.
Also, there's plenty of edge. Edge abounds.
Oh yeah, there's a decent amount of edge.
They shoot an evil teenage girl point blank in the chest at the end of, was it episode 1 or 2?
2.
At the end of episode 2.
The one thing. I gotta fucking mention it. Like, y'all are probably getting sick of me doing this at this point, but I have to fucking mention it again.
Go!
Is that, like, yeah, I think we were talking about it earlier. Just, like, whenever the show seems like it might be losing your attention, they have Claire take her clothes off. And, like, I don't even mean, like, in a sense that, like, oh, we get, like, an upskirt or something. No, I mean, like, she literally takes her clothes off. Basically, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a real...
Twice an episode.
I would call it diegetic fan service.
And it's transparent, and we've covered this before, literally on this episode, so I'm not going to go over it too much again. But
back in the heady days of Weeaboo Hell, episode 19. Was this 19? Whatever, fuck it.
Something, I don't know. I just wanted it on the record that I was kind of pissed off.
Sam doesn't like to be insulted. He doesn't like it that we're always at it again. Perhaps that we are always at it.
Right? Like, are you never not? I'm
pretty consistent.
The one thing, though, is that I did feel as though instead of being actively insulted, I did feel like, hey, what's the big idea? I was enjoying this.
Yeah, and that does speak to its credit. So
it does speak to the show's credit that I can be sort of like rudely interrupted by fan service rather than, is this the best you fucking got?
You do feel like there's something here, and I think this show, I think it could pull up. I just does not have really full marks or momentum for me as it is right now.
Yeah, I'm expecting this one to sort of clock in at probably like a 6 or a 7 for its final score by the time it's over. I mean, like, I could be wrong. This could, get fucking nuts. It could just get real fucking good the way the Demon Slayer did.
We could just say, like, wow. Remember when Gleipnir got us through the darkness?
Right? It could happen. It's, like, with the 12 episodes that this is probably going to have, I doubt it's going to. Just do the math. That's, like, it's not long enough. But I've been wrong before. Like, here's the thing. Demon Slayer humbled me.
Yeah, it feels...
So I'm willing to...
It feels good to know that things can really surprise you in a positive way, and not just the darling and the Franex kind of way. Anyway, these have been two very spunky shows, and this has been Weeaboo Hell.
It's Weeaboo Hell.
Thank you for your time, and good night. Quick addendum, re the title. At one point, a really brash character says, "Shit, I kicked too much loser ass." And that is the best quote I have heard in years.